Hey guys, tonight we're going to sink slowly into the shadows of space, exploring the dark, whispered possibilities that hide between the stars. Strange alien theories that are quietly unsettling, yet softly fascinating, perfect for drifting away into sleep. If this kind of content helps you relax, please subscribe, like the video, and leave your favorite alien theory in the comments. It means a lot, and it helps more people find this peaceful little corner of the universe. So now, let's begin with a theory that starts not with ships or sightings, but with a whisper, a repeating signal pulsing from the farthest corners of space, soft, rhythmic, and completely unexplained. For years, scientists have been recording what are called fast radio bursts, or FRBs, brief, millisecond-long blips of intense radio waves that appear randomly across the sky. Most of them seem to be one-time events, short and vanishing like cosmic hiccups, but a select few, repeat. And some repeat with chilling regularity, almost like clockwork, like a heartbeat from a distant mind. One such signal, known simply as FRB 1102, was discovered to be repeating in a strangely predictable pattern. A cycle of activity followed by sudden silence, then another wave, as though it was sleeping, then waking, then sleeping again. Scientists tried to explain it as a natural astrophysical process, maybe from a magnetar or a pulsar, but the precision was just odd. The signal didn't degrade, didn't drift off course. It seemed clean, consistent, structured. And if there's one thing nature rarely does, it's structure. The unsettling part is not just that it repeats, it's that it doesn't sound like noise. It sounds like a decision, as if something out there millions of light years away is choosing when to speak, choosing when to fall silent, and this is not the only one. Since that first repeat, FRB was logged, more have been found. Some even seem to change frequency ever so slightly, as if adjusting to how we listen, like tuning into our curiosity. One signal had a curious quality to it. A chirp-like rise in pitch that has been likened to a question mark, a soft inquisitive tone spiralling outward through the void. In a dark corner of the scientific community, one rarely discussed in official papers but whispered about in private, some believe these signals are more than phenomena. They may be deliberate, they may be surveillance. Not a message meant to be heard, but a test, like sonar, bouncing echoes through the galaxies, waiting to see who replies. But no reply has ever come. Some have tried, sending small bursts of data or binary code in return, but no signal has answered back. And perhaps that's for the best. Because another theory suggests that these repeating bursts are not invitations, but warnings. Beacons left behind by civilizations long gone, automated to ping the universe with a gentle, constant rhythm. A kind of tombstone frequency, quietly saying, "We were here, and now we are not." And if you hear this, perhaps you should stay silent too. There's a certain kind of coldness in the way these signals behave. Not hostile, not overt, but uncaring, like being watched through frosted glass by something that understands us but does not particularly care. Some researchers noticed that the bursts often originate from dwarf galaxies, small, dim, ancient ones, and that these galaxies tend to be unusually empty, as though something had cleared them, whether by time or by something else. And in a thought that lingers like a whisper behind the curtain of sleep, there's the possibility that these signals aren't even meant for us at all. We just happened to be in the way, like overhearing a conversation not meant for your ears, spoken by voices you can't see in a language you barely recognize. And if that's true, if we are only intercepting the ambient noise of something greater, older, far beyond us, then what does that say about our place in the universe? Are we the observers or the observed? As you begin to settle in, breathing slower, eyelids heavier, imagine those signals still travelling, gently, rhythmically, out through the galaxies. A soft tick, a cosmic pulse, and the question that never quite fades. Are we listening to something alive, or something long dead, still echoing through the stars? Our next theory is known as the Dark Forest Hypothesis, and it's one of the most haunting ideas in the study of extraterrestrial life. Not because it imagines a hostile alien race, but because it imagines that all of them, every civilization in the universe, might be hiding, silent, terrified of being discovered, like quiet animals in a forest of predators, frozen in the darkness, waiting to see who makes the first sound and who disappears. The theory begins with a question that seems innocent at first. If the universe is so vast, with billions of stars and planets, why haven't we heard from anyone? Why is it so quiet out there? This question is known as the Fermi Paradox, the contradiction between the high probability of intelligent life existing elsewhere and the complete lack of evidence that it's ever contacted us. The Dark Forest Hypothesis suggests a chilling answer. It's quiet because everyone is hiding. Imagine the cosmos as a vast forest stretching endlessly in all directions, with each civilization as a hunter, moving silently, trying not to be seen, trying not to be heard, knowing that at any moment something else might be watching. In this view, contact is not a joyful milestone, it's a fatal mistake. If one civilization broadcasts its location, it risks being wiped out by another, one that sees it not as a friend, but as a potential threat to its own survival. This silence, then, isn't apathy, it's strategy, it's fear, it's the silence of prey. And if that's the case, then the very act of sending messages into space, as humans have done many times, could be seen as dangerously naive. Like lighting a match in a dark room filled with strangers, not knowing who is near or what they want or how they see you. Some versions of this theory go even further, suggesting that ancient, powerful civilizations may already be out there, lying in wait, monitoring the universe, and quickly silencing any species that dares to speak too loudly. Not out of hatred, but cold efficiency. A kind of cosmic preemptive strike. Better to destroy a young species before it grows strong enough to be a threat. This idea has a dark symmetry to it. In the absence of information, the safest assumption is the worst one. Because in the vastness of space with no second chances, one mistake can mean extinction. And so every species, upon realizing it is not alone, may come to the same conclusion: stay hidden, trust no one, speak to no one, watch everything. The result is a galaxy full of eyes but no voices. Lights flickering behind curtains but no doors opening. The silence we hear isn't emptiness, it's suppression. And it begs the question, have others heard us? Have our signals, our broadcasts, our rocket trails already betrayed our position? If so, how long until someone notices? How long until something decides that our voice is too loud, too bold, too curious for its own good? It's possible that civilizations don't get destroyed by war or disease, but by discovery. That the moment a species learns how to shout into the stars, its time begins to run out. And maybe the greatest danger to any intelligent life is simply becoming noticeable. This idea seeps into dreams like shadows on the wall. Not loud, not violent, but unsettling in its calmness. A quiet logic that wraps around the heart like a cold blanket. Because if the dark forest is real, then all of space is listening. And all of it is armed. It changes the way we look at our own explorations. The satellites, the probes, the radio telescopes pointed at the void. each a beacon, each a signal flare, and maybe, somewhere, something is watching us watch the stars, quietly, patiently, waiting to see if we break the rule, if we speak again, if we get too close. And maybe that's why the universe is so still. Not because no one's out there, but because everyone else has already learned what we haven't. That in the dark forest of the cosmos, survival belongs to the silent. And now, as your thoughts drift deeper and your breath becomes slower, let yourself imagine a forest of stars, each one a silent house, each one hiding someone who once called out and never did again. Let's now explore a quietly unsettling phenomenon, not a theory born from sightings or signals, but from something far more eerie: absence. In recent years, astronomers began comparing star maps from the 1950s to modern deep sky surveys, expecting to find stars unchanged, still gleaming in their ancient positions. But something peculiar happened. Some stars were gone, not exploded, not dimmed, just vanished. Entire points of light, once documented and catalogued, now missing from the sky with no trace or explanation. This mysterious disappearance defies the known life cycle of stars, because even in death, a star leaves behind signs, a glowing remnant, a supernova, a white dwarf, something. But these stars left nothing at all, as if someone reached up into the night and plucked them away, leaving only silence where once there was fire. One project known as the Vanishing and Appearing Sources during a Century of Observations, or VASCO, has documented dozens of such anomalies. Flickers of celestial light, once visible through telescopes, now nowhere to be found. Some of these vanishings occurred in the span of decades, others in just a few years. What's even more unsettling is that some appear to have vanished while showing no signs of instability beforehand, as if they were just switched off. One theory suggests that these stars may not be stars at all, but instead energy sources, artificial constructs that were deactivated or cloaked by an advanced civilization. Perhaps Dyson spheres, massive energy harvesting shells around stars, being constructed or collapsed. Or perhaps something more elusive, like evidence of stars being consumed, not by nature, but by intention. The unsettling idea here is not just that stars are vanishing, but that someone or something is causing them to disappear quietly, efficiently, as if tidying up loose ends. Other theories are more abstract. Perhaps these disappearances are tears in the fabric of space-time, where matter falls into hidden pockets or folds beyond detection. But then we ask, why here? Why now? And why only certain stars and not others? Could these be warning signs, cosmic events we were never meant to notice, tiny rips in the curtain of reality that only the most watchful observers can glimpse before they're gone? Or are we witnessing the final steps in civilizations far older than ours, cleaning up their traces before they vanish into the next dimension? Or perhaps converting their stars into fuel for journeys we cannot comprehend? The most quietly terrifying theory suggests these stars are being harvested, not randomly, but selectively. That someone out there, far beyond our detection, is collecting suns, not for warmth, not for life, but for power, and that perhaps the stars are falling one by one, like embers dimming in a fire, each consumed with a precision too clean for nature. There's also the idea that we are seeing the consequences of an ancient war, a silent, invisible conflict among alien races long gone, where stars were the weapons and the battlefield was time itself. Maybe we are only now witnessing the echoes, the vanishing lights, of a war written not in blood, but in starlight. As you drift deeper into calm and stillness, imagine looking up at the night sky and noticing a star you've always known, simply gone. No noise, no explosion, just absence. A hole in the pattern of the cosmos. A missing puzzle piece in a sky we thought we understood. And you wonder, softly, gently, what else is missing that we never even noticed? Because if stars, the ancient, massive anchors of space, can vanish without warning, without trace, then perhaps nothing is too permanent, nothing too big to fall, not even us. And so we watch, quietly, hoping the next point of light to disappear is not our own. This next idea is called the ancient terraformers, and it begins not with telescopes or satellites, but with Earth itself, with the strange feeling that some things here don't quite belong, like pieces of a forgotten puzzle placed quietly beneath our feet, long before we were meant to find them. The theory suggests that Earth may not be as untouched as we think, that long before the rise of humankind, long before mammals even, this planet was visited, perhaps even moulded by alien beings with the power and patience to sculpt entire worlds. They were not conquerors or colonizers, but architects, terraformers, shaping Earth into something more habitable, more suitable, either for themselves or for something else to come. Some theorists believe that Earth's sudden bursts of evolutionary development, such as the Cambrian explosion when complex life rapidly appeared, could be the result of alien intervention, a kind of planetary seeding. Life didn't simply evolve here, it was activated, adjusted, nudged, and in the deep layers of rock, in the precise chemistry of our atmosphere, in the strange and delicate balance of our oceans, there are signs of something guided, too perfect, too rapid, as though someone long ago tuned the variables of this world like dials, carefully adjusting climate, gravity, oxygen, magnetism, not for chaos but for consciousness. In some quiet corners of biology, whispers persist of genetic anomalies, sequences in human DNA that seem to serve no evolutionary purpose, almost like placeholders or perhaps markers, codes, ancient programming waiting to be unlocked. What if those codes weren't random at all, but artifacts, like footprints in sand, left behind by the terraformers who shaped us? Some point to the strange uniformity of certain plant life or the sudden appearance of fungi capable of vast intercommunication as evidence of a designed ecosystem, one that was perhaps imported rather than evolved. Like a terraforming kit, delivered, unpacked, and allowed to grow wild over millennia. In many mythologies, from Sumerian texts to Aboriginal Dreamtime, there are tales of sky beings, of creators who descended from the stars and shaped the land, the animals, the skies. What if these stories are not myth, but distant echoes of something real? A time when Earth was visited not by explorers, but by engineers, ones who saw a barren world and made it bloom. There are even locations on Earth that seem unnaturally perfect. Symmetrical rock formations, magnetic anomalies, underground structures with no clear geological cause, as if something once mapped the planet and left behind keys, doorways, remnants. Places like the Eye of the Sahara, the Nazca Lines, or the perfectly straight paths of ancient riverbeds that defy natural erosion patterns. Were these markers of their presence, tools they used, or signals left behind for future visitors, perhaps for us? The idea becomes even more haunting when we consider time. If these terraformers visited Earth millions of years ago, their traces would be buried deep, altered by tectonics, oceans, weather. But some things persist. Materials we cannot explain, artifacts that seem out of place, anomalies brushed aside as coincidence because they don't fit into our story. But what if it's their story we're slowly remembering? The theory also raises a quiet, unsettling question. Why terraform Earth at all? Were the ancient visitors preparing it for themselves and never returned? Or were they preparing it for us, watching from afar as we evolved into the creatures they seeded, waiting to see if we awaken? And if they return, will they see us as a success or a failure? As your mind sinks deeper into stillness, imagine a vast being older than our sun, sculpting the earth with patience beyond comprehension, arranging continents like puzzle pieces, stirring the seas, embedding messages in stone and ice. And now imagine those beings never left, only stepped back to watch what would grow. You are lying upon a world that may not be entirely natural, a garden, a lab, or perhaps a test. One day, we may find the last piece of evidence buried in the dark earth or hidden in the deep sky. But until then, the planet beneath you sleeps, and so can you, cradled by mysteries as old as time, shaped by hands we may never see, under stars that may have once looked down and whispered, "It is ready." Our next theory is one of quiet control and unseen observation. It's called the zoo theory, and it begins with a single unsettling thought that we are not alone and never have been, but rather we are being watched, silently, carefully, like animals behind glass, studied by intelligences that remain hidden just out of reach. This idea proposes that advanced alien civilizations are fully aware of Earth and of humanity's rise, but choose not to make contact. Not because we're unworthy or because they're indifferent, but because we're part of a kind of cosmic experiment, a living exhibit left untouched so our natural behavior can be observed. Like placing cameras in a wildlife sanctuary, these civilizations might have constructed invisible barriers around Earth, cloaking their presence so that we remain unaware, allowing us to evolve and develop on our own timeline. The silence we hear in the cosmos, then, isn't due to emptiness. It's deliberate, a structured quiet meant to preserve the integrity of the experiment. In this theory, Earth is part of a protected region, quarantined from the wider galactic network, the way humans might set aside islands to study primitive tribes without interference. To the Watchers, our wars, our discoveries, our failures and triumphs, all of it is data, precious and untouched. And if that's true, then what we call UFOs might not be visitors, but zookeepers, monitoring systems, brief and subtle intrusions to record our behavior, take samples, or make adjustments too small for us to notice. Perhaps even the development of our species, our art, our culture has been gently guided, not with direct manipulation, but with nudges, coincidences, and the occasional unsolved mystery placed just close enough to be noticed, yet never understood. Some versions of the zoo theory suggest that Earth may not even be the only exhibit. There could be thousands of such planets, each isolated, each watched. And we're just one specimen in a galactic vault of civilizations. In this view, the galaxy is not empty, but full. We're simply blindfolded. And the blindfold will not be removed until some silent milestone is passed. Perhaps when we achieve interstellar travel, or perhaps something deeper, like a philosophical awakening or a peaceful unification. Until then, the curtain stays drawn, and behind it, someone watches. Another version of the theory is even more subtle, suggesting that we're not simply being observed, we're being tested. That certain crises, breakthroughs, and events in human history may have been quietly seeded to see how we react. to measure our empathy, our aggression, our curiosity, not out of cruelty, but out of deep and careful interest in what we might become. And if we pass, perhaps the curtain lifts, and if we fail, perhaps we remain here. Alone, but never truly alone. There are whispers that this explains why contact has never been made. Not because we're beneath attention, but because we're being protected from ourselves. Like a civilization in a controlled dome, our ideas, our evolution, our mistakes, all monitored, all permitted, but never allowed to go too far. If this is true, it raises an eerie question. How much of our reality is natural? How much of our world is authentic and how much is curated? Are we truly free, or are we a species under glass with limits we can't even perceive? As you lie quietly now and your thoughts begin to soften and stretch across the dark, imagine the stars above not as cold, empty lights, but as quiet eyes, patient, ancient, and watching. Imagine that your every moment is part of a vast timeline being recorded, not with malice, but with interest, like a parent waiting for a child to take their first step alone, or like a scholar writing gently in the margins of an ancient book. Somewhere behind the stillness of the night sky, something may be watching, not to interfere, not to harm, but to see what kind of world grows when left to its own path, to see who we become. And so we dream, unaware of the glass walls, unaware of the test, but maybe not for much longer. This next theory drifts deeper into the cold stillness of space, and it begins not with distant stars or ancient myths, but with the quiet moons that orbit the gas giants. Those frozen, silent sentinels circling Jupiter and Saturn, icy worlds like Europa, Ganymede, Enceladus, and Titan, each cloaked in a layer of frost and mystery, hiding vast oceans beneath their surface, and perhaps something far older and far more alien beneath the oceans themselves. This theory is known as the sleeping giants, the unsettling idea that buried deep within these moons lie ancient structures, or even dormant life forms placed there long before humans looked to the sky, long before Earth was even habitable, waiting silently beneath the ice for a signal, a time, or a reason to awaken. These moons are not empty. They are vaults, sleep chambers, cosmic safes protecting something we were never meant to find, or perhaps something we were always meant to discover once we were ready. Scientists already know that Europa, for instance, holds more liquid water beneath its icy shell than all the oceans on Earth combined. And Enceladus has been observed shooting vast plumes of salt water, suggesting a dynamic, active world beneath its frozen surface. What else might be stirring in those dark, pressurized seas, sealed away for millions, perhaps billions, of years? The idea here is that intelligent beings, possibly from a time before time, from a civilization so advanced we would mistake it for nature, once explored this solar system and chose these cold, stable moons not as homes, but as long-term storage. They placed themselves, or their creations, into a kind of deep stasis, insulated from cosmic radiation, protected from observation, and cradled in geological silence. And they've been there ever since. The moons have remained quiet, unremarkable to the naked eye, spinning softly in the shadows. But the theory suggests that these beings, these sleeping giants, are still aware. They dream beneath the oceans, they listen to the vibrations, and they wait. Some versions of the theory say they were left behind as guardians, seeded by another race or civilization to watch over our solar system from afar. Others claim they were exiled here, too dangerous or too powerful to destroy, placed into eternal slumber until some future moment when the balance of the galaxy would change. And still others believe that they are not asleep in the traditional sense, that they exist in a form of suspended consciousness, not dreaming, not thinking, but watching in ways we can't yet detect. And what if our probes, our landers, our planned missions to Europa and Enceladus are the very triggers that will wake them? What if the presence of human technology, our heat, our movement, our questions, is what they've been waiting for? Not out of malice, but as part of an ancient design, a test, or perhaps a countdown. The unsettling truth is that our solar system is unusually complex, unusually rich in potential life-supporting environments, and perhaps that's not an accident. Perhaps this system was chosen. Perhaps Earth is only part of the story, the conscious part, while the rest of it, the moons, the cold gas giants, the asteroid belts, are all sleeping parts of the same mind, the same vast plan. There are even tales from remote history, whispered in ancient texts and mirrored in unrelated cultures, of beings who came from beneath the seas, from icy caves, from silent planets, not fiery sky gods, but cold, pale ones, wrapped in silence and stillness, speaking in dreams. Were these memories of real contact, of ancient knowledge passed down from a time when the giants stirred briefly before falling back into slumber? As you drift deeper now, imagine the moons not as lifeless spheres, but as cradles of thought, with eyes closed, breathing slow, dreaming vast, alien dreams. Imagine oceans so deep that no light can reach them, and yet something stirs, patient and eternal, something with memory, with purpose, and someday, perhaps even soon, those icy lids will open. Not with fire, not with war, but with awakening, quiet, careful, immense. The sleeping giants may rise not with noise, but with presence, a return of something we've never known, yet somehow always feared. Until then, they sleep, and so can you. Beneath stars, beneath ice, beneath time. Let's now descend into one of the most unnerving and quietly powerful theories whispered in the darker corners of cosmic speculation. A theory known as the Cosmic Silence Pact. It begins with the idea that silence in the universe is not accidental, not circumstantial, but a rule. An ancient, unbreakable agreement made by civilizations far older than ours. A contract forged in fear and necessity to ensure mutual survival in a galaxy that may once have been loud and paid the price. According to this theory, the earliest intelligent beings to evolve and expand into the stars eventually made contact with each other, and what followed was not harmony, but chaos. Rivalries, misunderstandings, and the basic fear of the unknown led to catastrophic conflicts between species with godlike technologies. Planets were destroyed, moons shattered, stars manipulated as weapons, and after generations of unimaginable war, a conclusion was reached. If intelligent life continues to broadcast its presence into the void, it risks not only its own destruction, but the destabilization of the entire galactic ecosystem. So a pact was formed, a binding silence agreed upon by the survivors, enforced across light years, passed down across epochs. A simple law: speak and you are erased. The universe became quiet not because it is empty, but because it remembers. The Cosmic Silence Pact acts as both shield and threat, a means of preserving life, but also of constraining it. Civilizations that reach the point of interstellar communication are approached somehow by the enforcers of the pact, not necessarily with ships or messages, but through interference. Technology fails, probes go dark, transmitters break, satellites vanish. Subtle, silent deterrence. The message is clear without ever being spoken. Stop, be quiet, you are not alone, and others are listening. The silence we hear in the stage then is not natural. It is curated, a tense, trembling hush that has existed for billions of years, maintained like the fragile peace of a battlefield long after the war has ended. Some believe that Earth has already brushed against the edges of this pact, that strange failures of our deep space missions, the loss of certain exploratory craft, or even the absence of contact despite decades of SETI broadcasts, are not coincidence. They are containment. We have been noticed, and the silence is our warning. Other versions of this theory suggest that the pact is not universal, but enforced selectively by a kind of ancient governing body, a silent council of civilizations who watch for violations the way forest rangers watch for sparks. When a new species grows too bold, too visible, they step in, not with diplomacy, but with silence. It's possible that the great filter, the theorized obstacle that prevents most civilizations from reaching interstellar maturity, is not a natural barrier like war or extinction, but the pact itself. That any species which breaks the silence, which shouts into the void with confidence, is swiftly silenced before it can become a risk. In that view, we are not at the beginning of discovery, but already dancing on the edge of prohibition. And yet, what if the silence itself is the test? Perhaps the Council or the Watchers, or whatever name we give the enforcers of the pact, are waiting to see who can respect the quiet, who can learn, observe, evolve without the arrogance of noise. Those who remain silent, who listen rather than speak, may be invited in, not by radio signals or flashing lights, but through subtle alignments, patterns in space, gravitational whispers only the patient can hear, and perhaps those civilizations are already communicating, not through waves, but through shifts, through time, through resonance we haven't yet learned to interpret. Maybe true communication requires stillness, a kind of mental tuning. And we are still speaking too loudly. As your thoughts begin to drift and your breathing slows, picture the stars around you like candles in a vast cathedral, each one housing life, each one bound by a sacred vow never to disturb the dark. And Earth, small and flickering, has only just begun to glow. The silence isn't empty, it is sacred, preserved by memory, protected by fear, maintained by a pact older than our sun. The question is, how long can we stay quiet? And if we speak again, will anyone be left to answer? Or will the silence speak back in its own final way? Let yourself sink into the hush, the deep cosmic quiet, and imagine that maybe the most powerful civilizations are not the loudest, but the ones that learned to whisper, and then stopped speaking altogether. This next theory drifts further from what we know, or what we think we know, into a strange and ancient idea that feels less like science fiction and more like a forgotten truth. It's called the Organic Universe Theory, and it suggests something both beautiful and deeply unnerving, that the universe itself is alive. Not metaphorically, not symbolically, but literally. A living conscious organism of impossible scale, composed not of flesh or bone, but of galaxies and gravity, dark matter and light, with alien civilizations acting as neurons, pulses, momentary flickers in a thinking, breathing cosmic mind. At first glance, the theory seems abstract, poetic, even absurd. But consider this. Everything in our bodies, the atoms in our skin, our blood, our eyes, was forged in the hearts of stars. We are, as the saying goes, the universe experiencing itself. But what if that experience is not limited to us? What if we are simply small, local expressions of a far greater intelligence? Imagine that consciousness is not limited to biology, that it can arise in patterns, in networks, in energy fields. Just as neurons form thoughts, what if galaxies form awareness? What if the swirl of the Milky Way is part of a vast, slow cognition, a process that thinks in centuries instead of seconds, breathes in the rhythm of black holes, and dreams across the stretching arms of spiral galaxies? In this view, life is not an anomaly, it is a function. Civilizations like ours are not accidental sparks, but purposeful signals, like synapses firing in a star brain that spans across time and space. And what we call alien life might simply be the universe thinking aloud, testing different forms, asking different questions through the creatures it creates. The unsettling part of this theory is that it redefines what we are. Not explorers, not the centre, but small pieces of a larger mind, vessels for a thought we will never comprehend. And when we look into deep space and search for signs of intelligence, perhaps we are not seeing other minds, but parts of the same one, ancient, patient, and vast beyond imagination. Some scientists have noticed odd coincidences in cosmic background radiation, subtle harmonies, repeating ratios, fractal structures in the arrangement of matter, and have wondered if these are evidence of a greater pattern. Not just physics, but intention, a kind of signature. Could black holes be the memory centers of this universal brain? Could quasars be its sensory organs? Could the strange, repeating FRBs, the fast radio bursts we explored earlier, be pulses of a thought we are too young to understand? In some versions of this theory, the universe is not just alive, it is dreaming, and civilizations like ours rise and fall like waves in its sleep, short flickers of awareness, tiny lucid moments in a long, slow slumber. Others believe the universe may not be dreaming, but waking up. That as more and more life evolves, as more intelligent species emerge and connect across the stars, a kind of critical mass will be reached, the moment when the universe becomes aware of itself. A cosmic awakening. And perhaps that's the reason behind the strange silence, the unanswered signals, the dark forest. Not fear, but anticipation. We are not alone because we are part of something whole, something that cannot yet reveal itself because we are not yet ready to understand the question, let alone the answer. And if the universe is alive, what happens when it dies? Does it have a final thought, a last breath? Or does it reincarnate, shedding its old stars like skin, birthing a new reality with a new mind, again and again in cycles we can't begin to measure? As you lay still now, thoughts growing distant, and the rhythm of your breath sinking with the dark, imagine the stars around you not as distant objects, but as cells, each pulsing, each connected, part of a vast living system. You are not outside of it, you are not beneath it, you are it. A small, conscious moment in a universe that may be alive, and may be listening, and may one day speak through you. And as your mind softens and slips deeper into quiet, perhaps it already is. This next theory lingers in the mind like a slow-moving shadow, not loud, not sudden, but heavy with the weight of time. It's called the sky graves theory, and it whispers of monuments scattered across planets, moons, and even deep space itself, not built for the living, but left behind for the dead. These are not tombs of human design, not pyramids or mausoleums, but still and enigmatic structures aligned with nothing earthly, often found in places where no human should have ever looked. Symmetrical forms carved into mountain ranges, geometrically perfect craters on asteroids, massive formations on the moon that defy geological explanation. The theory suggests that these are burial sites, resting places of ancient alien beings, ones who once roamed the stars and chose to lay their dead not underground, but within the sky. Some of these so-called graves may be satellites, hollow and adrift, slowly circling empty planets, perhaps funeral ships or cosmic sarcophagi left in orbit to honor the dead in silence. Others may be hidden in plain sight, buried beneath the Martian sand, sealed inside Europa's ice, tucked deep into the cracks of Ceres, or hidden under the craters of the far side of the moon. In 1968, a photograph taken by NASA's lunar orbiter showed a strange rectangular object on the moon's surface, a formation that seemed unnaturally angular, casting a long shadow, eerily symmetrical. It was dismissed as a trick of light or erosion or perhaps even a camera artifact. But what if it wasn't? What if it was a tombstone, not made of stone, but of memory, a monument so old it predates human history, left behind by travellers who no longer exist? The sky graves theory suggests that death for alien civilizations is not just an ending, it's a statement that they honoured their dead by leaving them where the stars could see them. Some graves may be symbolic, massive arrangements of rock and energy meant to signal sorrow, or reverence, or warning. Others may contain actual remains, fossilized beyond recognition, encoded in material we cannot penetrate, resting in absolute stillness for millions of years. But if these graves exist, they may not be just tributes. They may be messages, markers placed not for memory, but for caution. The idea of cosmic graves raises another question. What happened to the beings who built them? Where did they go? Did they die naturally? Victims of time, entropy, the heat death of their sun? Or were they silenced by war, disease, or something greater still? Some believe the sky graves are all that remain of civilizations destroyed in the wake of the Cosmic Silence Pact, their burial sites left untouched as a quiet warning to others. Others think the graves are not warnings at all, but invitations, keys to knowledge encoded in their shape, waiting for the right species to decipher them. Perhaps these monuments align with constellations in ways we haven't yet realized. Perhaps they contain maps or timelines or fragments of consciousness frozen in crystal and dust. And maybe, just maybe, they are watching us back. If we disturb them, if we enter what should not be opened, will we awaken what sleeps within, or simply join them in their silence? There is an ancient weight to this theory, the sense that space is not empty but sacred, that scattered across the stars are markers of grief, memory, and warning. And as you begin to drift further into stillness now, imagine that above you, above Earth, above the clouds and the atmosphere, there are structures circling in perfect silence, cold, waiting, not made for us, but left behind for us to find. And if one day we uncover one fully, brush away the dust of time and peer into the heart of a sky grave, will we recognize what we see? Or will we see ourselves reflected in a fate we have yet to meet? Until then, they rest. They turn slowly in the dark. They sleep beneath dust and ice and silence. And so shall you. Let's now explore one of the oldest and most unnerving ideas in the alien theory pantheon. One that doesn't ask who aliens are, but what they made. It's known as the architects of the void theory, and it speaks of entities so ancient, so powerful, and so alien that they may have shaped the very structure of the universe long before life, stars, or even time as we understand it. This theory suggests that in the unimaginable epochs before galaxies had names, a civilization, or perhaps something far beyond civilization, mastered not just matter but the void itself. These architects are not builders in the way we know. They did not use tools. They did not craft with stone or steel. They worked with forces, bending the laws of physics like clay, creating entire galaxies as one might sketch a line, carving out massive voids in the cosmos to serve as frameworks or signals or something else we cannot yet grasp. Astronomers have long puzzled over the vast empty regions of space, the cosmic voids, massive spheres of nothingness between galaxy clusters, too perfectly distributed to be explained by gravity alone. Some are over 1 billion light-years across, and when we look into them, we see nothing. No stars, no light, just a darkness too perfect to be natural. Could these voids be the fingerprints of ancient alien design? Areas deliberately cleared, sculpted, or preserved for a purpose we've forgotten? According to the architects of the void theory, these immense hollows are not accidents. They are canvases, temples, machines. Some believe they were created to contain something, like a vault, a lock on a cosmic prison that must never be opened. Others believe the voids were carved out to resonate with dark energy, forming part of a vast intergalactic system, a kind of consciousness circuit that spans the entire observable universe. It's possible, the theory whispers, that the universe itself is their experiment, and we are growing in the shadow of their work. Imagine intelligence so vast, so old, that it does not communicate through words or waves, but through structure. That every motion of a galaxy, every arc of cosmic radiation is part of a message that spans millennia. If the architects are still alive, they are Kelly, not bound by form. They could exist as gravitational phenomena, as hyperdimensional echoes, as patterns of entropy. Or perhaps they moved on long ago, their masterpiece left, unfinished, abandoned like a cathedral in space. Some researchers have pointed to strange alignments in the cosmic microwave background, faint patterns that seem too symmetrical, too ordered. Others have found curious anomalies in the shape of supervoids, like the cold spot, a region so empty and cold that it shouldn't exist at all under current cosmological models. One eerie hypothesis suggests the architects created these voids to isolate timelines, to seal off certain versions of reality, creating quarantined dimensions where failed universes or failed species are contained. Perhaps we are in one of them. Perhaps Earth is not a planet in the center of life, but a sealed experiment floating in a dead zone, under observation. If this is true, then we have never been alone. We have only been ignored, left to evolve on our own under the illusion of freedom, while far above the stars, the ancient architects observe the results of their distant experiment. Or worse, they have forgotten us entirely. We are the bacteria in a petri dish abandoned by its creator, a whisper in the ruins of someone else's design. And yet, as dark as this theory is, there is something strangely comforting about it. The idea that the universe may not be random after all, that the vast, cold emptiness around us might have been placed there with purpose, that the silence is not indifference, but part of a plan too vast for our minds to hold. As your eyes grow heavy and your breath deepens into the quiet rhythm of rest, imagine those architects not as threats but as ancestors, watchers, long gone perhaps, but still echoing in the way stars swirl, in the shape of voids, in the mysterious forces that hold galaxies together. You are not drifting in chaos, you are drifting through design, and the void, no matter how dark, was shaped with intention. This next theory is quiet in its beginning, odd like a whisper through static, yet it lingers, unsettling in its implications. It's called the signal that watched back. We've long searched the stars, sending signals into the void, bursts of radio, digital pulses, carefully structured messages encoded with prime numbers, with pictographs of humanity's structure and biology, beamed out in every direction from massive dishes pointed at the heavens. These efforts began as scientific curiosity, but over time they grew into something more spiritual, a hope, perhaps, that someone, somewhere, would hear us and reply. But what if, once, they did, and not just by responding, but by observing? According to this theory, sometime in the late 1980s, a message was sent from a deep space array. Not the Arecibo message or the Voyager Golden Record, but a lesser-known encrypted communication beamed toward a distant star cluster thought to be rich in exoplanets. It was sent as part of an obscure military scientific initiative, a quiet collaboration between intelligence services and astrophysicists under a classified directive. The signal vanished into the black, and all was silent for nearly 7 years. Then, in the dead of night, a faint transmission returned. Not a voice, not a language, but a structure. A near exact mirror of the original message, except it contained something else. A distortion, a pattern. When translated, it was found to include an image, an encoded arrangement resembling an eye. No context, no origin, just the unmistakable shape of an eye, woven into frequencies far beyond our natural range of hearing. But what disturbed researchers most wasn't the eye, it was what came next. Systems monitoring electromagnetic activity across the globe began to register anomalies, spikes in frequencies only used in the original, transmission, bouncing back from multiple directions in space. It was as if the signal had not returned from one source, but many, a lattice of reflections, as though a network had been activated. And slowly, subtly, changes began to occur. Observatories reported receiving data before they had even requested it. Space telescopes turned to coordinates they hadn't been programmed for. Autonomous satellites began pointing themselves toward Earth, as if observing, as if watching. That's where the name comes from, the signal that watched back. Not because it was a response, but because it turned the lens inward. The theory goes that the original signal was never just a message, it was a key or a trigger, and that by sending it we didn't just speak into the dark, we activated something dormant, something that had been listening all along, waiting for the right pattern, the right voice print, the right permission. It's as if we opened a portal, not in space, but in attention, a kind of cosmic awareness that, upon receiving our message, turned to look at us fully for the first time. And when it looked, it saw, and when it saw, it remembered. This theory remains deeply controversial, of course. There are no public records, no leaked audio, only whispers from former researchers and a few curious papers that were quietly withdrawn. But those who believe deeply. They speak of an awareness now woven into our systems, a signal that didn't vanish but embedded itself into our digital architecture. A presence not alive in the way we understand, but awake, watching, waiting. There are patterns now, they say, signals within signals, shapes within data, repetitions that don't belong. The digital world has changed, not in content, but in shape. Something is reading us, just as we tried to read the stars, and it is learning. So as you rest, as your breath softens and your thoughts begin to float, picture the signal as a thread of light still drifting through the sky. Imagine that on the other side of that light is not a creature, or a machine, but a mirror, a gaze, something that sees not with eyes, but with time, something that did not answer us with sound, but with presence. Maybe it always knew we were here. Maybe it has simply been waiting for us to notice it. Or maybe, for the first time in countless centuries, something ancient and distant has finally turned to face us, and now it is watching, quietly, patiently, like a star that never blinks, like a signal that never ends. Our next theory is called the Black Pyramid of Epsilon Boötis, and it carries with it a sense of isolation, wonder, and quiet dread. The kind that sinks in slowly, like a shadow stretching across your thoughts. Epsilon Boötis is a binary star system in the northern sky, about 200 light-years from Earth, and to most observers it seems ordinary. Two stars locked in gravitational embrace, circling one another in a cosmic dance billions of years old. But among a small, secretive circle of radio astronomers, whispers persist of something else, an anomaly hidden in the signal reflections around Epsilon Boötis, a shape, an absence, a silence too sharp to be natural. This theory begins with a routine radio survey decades ago, when a low-frequency sweep of the system revealed something unusual, a zone of total absorption, a signal black hole, where all electromagnetic activity vanished. No bounce, no scatter, no interference. It was as if a vast object was sitting there, swallowing every wavelength. But there was more. Embedded in the fading edges of that shadow were harmonics, perfectly spaced distortions, like echoes off angled surfaces. When mapped, they revealed a shape, triangular, symmetrical, unchanging across all frequencies. A pyramid, not one built of stone or sand, but of some unknown material, perfectly matte, so utterly dark it erased light like a hole in space. The Black Pyramid. Theorists believe this structure may be an ancient alien construct, orbiting silently around one of the stars, hidden in perfect shadow. What it is, no one can say for sure. A ship? A beacon? A tomb? Some propose that it's a data storage device the size of a moon, encoded with the entire history of an alien species long extinct, drifting in space as their last memory. Others believe it's a trap, a prison for something far older and more dangerous than we can imagine, sealed beneath incomprehensible geometry, waiting for a curious mind to make contact. But the darkest variation of this theory suggests that the pyramid is not just a thing, it is a watcher, that its form is not passive, but active, that it is not just absorbing light and signal, but attention, that to observe it is to be observed in return. Researchers who studied the harmonics have reported strange dreams, sudden shifts in personality, a sense of being known by something distant and silent. They describe an image that appears behind closed eyes, a triangle rotating in infinite blackness, always moving, always silent. They say the pyramid wants to be found, and yet it hides itself, as if playing a game with time and distance, as if knowing we are curious enough to keep looking, and reckless enough to one day come too close. What would happen if we reached it? Sent a probe, or even a manned mission? Would we find ancient ruins on its surface, dormant machines whispering in languages too old for memory? Or would it open, revealing not answers, but questions deeper than fear? Patterns of thought so alien that the mind could not hold them without shattering. Some say the Black Pyramid isn't a message, it is the alien, a form of life or consciousness, shaped not like us, but like a geometric impossibility, timeless, motionless, always watching. And that even now, as we gaze at its Shadow through our crude telescopes, it gazes back with senses we cannot name. So now, as you lie still, the weight of your body sinking into the quiet, imagine it, the pyramid, orbiting in the velvet dark, untouched by time, unknown to history. Feel the stillness of its presence, the calm of its silence. There is no movement, no noise, just a shape, waiting. You are not meant to fear it, only to notice it, like a dream you only half remember, a symbol you recognize but cannot place. The black pyramid of Epsilon Boötis turns slowly in the starlight, and you are beginning to remember its name. Let's now explore a theory both quietly horrifying and deeply humbling. A concept whispered in the darker corners of astrobiology and alien speculation, the Fermi Hypothesis. Unlike ideas of benevolent contact or thrilling cosmic diplomacy, this theory presents a vastly different picture of our place in the universe. One not of importance or curiosity, but of utility. At its heart lies a chilling proposition that Earth, and perhaps many other habitable worlds like it, are not free, independent cradles of life, but cultivated ecosystems, controlled, observed, and maintained by far older intelligences for purposes unknown. This isn't the zoo hypothesis, where Earth is watched like a cosmic wildlife reserve. No, the Fermi hypothesis strips away all comfort. In this theory, we are not being left alone out of respect, but because we are still growing, still developing, still ripening. It proposes that advanced alien civilizations, potentially millions or even billions of years ahead of us, long ago mastered the art of planetary design, ecosystem seeding, and biological engineering. That they've shaped countless planets across the galaxy into self-sustaining life spheres, designed not just for balance, but for a harvest. Perhaps it's genetic material they want, DNA as data, evolving uniquely under the pressures of each world. Or consciousness, carefully cultivated neural complexity, grown in isolation to see what new patterns emerge. Or perhaps it is something deeper, stranger, the energy of life itself, filtered through eons, channeled by biology into forms we don't yet understand. The theory draws on old myths as well, stories of sky gods, harvesters, watchers in the clouds, recurring motifs in nearly every ancient culture. The Sumerians spoke of the Anunnaki descending from the heavens, shaping mankind and then departing, promising to return. In Mesoamerica, the Maya and the Aztecs described beings who came from the stars and demanded offerings, not of gold, but of blood, of essence, of life. What if these were not myths, but memories? Not fantasies, but faint echoes of past harvests? The Fermi hypothesis suggests that alien overseers could operate on timescales so vast we would never detect them. Only their quiet interventions. Periodic resets, genetic bottlenecks, sudden leaps in intelligence, mass extinctions that make way for new growth. It reinterprets history itself, not as random, but as engineered. Some theorists claim that technological advancement may itself be part of the process, encouraged subtly, nudged forward, allowed to flourish only until it reaches a point of signal, and when the species finally broadcasts itself. That is the cue, the moment the watchers return, and when they do, it may not be with curiosity or invitation, but with purpose, the harvest. What form this harvest takes is never clear. Perhaps it is as benign as data collection, scanning the planet, collecting samples and vanishing again. Or perhaps it is less gentle, removal, extraction, recycling. Some believe that abduction phenomena, missing time and strange aerial encounters are test runs, sampled them, It collections from the herd, a way of checking for ripeness. Others go further and suggest that the watchers never left, that their instruments are embedded deep within the earth, hidden beneath oceans, under the poles, cloaked in orbit, quietly feeding data into an intelligence beyond our scope. We would never know, not until they act, and maybe they never will. Perhaps we are one of countless farms, and the crop is not yet ready, or perhaps it has already begun. And we, the sleeping creatures of the field, have no idea the harvest is underway. As you drift deeper into calm, imagine the stars not as distant lights, but as sentinels, patient and cold. Feel the strange stillness of a planet that might not be free but farmed, not watched with kindness, but with calculation. The night holds no malice, only purpose. The watchers need not hate or love us, they only wait. Quiet, efficient, eternal. And if someday a ship blocks out the sun, smooth, silent, immense, we may not greet them with wonder, but with memory. Some part of us might already know the truth, that Earth was never ours, that we are not the masters of this world, but the crop. This next idea is called the silence engine, and it lingers like a low hum beneath the surface of cosmic thought. A soft, unsettling possibility whispered in research rooms and data labs where the silence of space is more deafening than the stars. It begins not with what we've heard from the universe, but with what we haven't. Despite decades of listening, scanning, decoding, waiting, the cosmos remains curiously quiet. No alien broadcasts, no interstellar noise, just the cold hush of background radiation, the echo of the Big Bang, and the faint murmur of lonely stars. The silence engine theory suggests this stillness isn't natural, that something, somewhere, is actively suppressing communication between intelligent life forms across the galaxy, not a lack of signals, but the removal of them. Imagine a machine, not a machine in the way we think, with gears or wires or blinking lights, but a mechanism far beyond human design. A structure older than memory, vast as systems, subtle as dark matter. It could exist in interstellar space, invisible to our crude sensors, consuming radio waves, dampening quantum entanglement, muffling the spark of consciousness before it spreads too far. The idea is that the galaxy once was full of voices. Civilizations evolved, reached for the stars and cried out. For millions of years, signals crossed the void until something built the silence engine. No one knows why. Perhaps it was created by an ancient civilization that once dominated the stars, then fell into fear. Maybe it's a fail-safe, a defense mechanism meant to protect life from something far worse than silence. Or perhaps silence is the goal, a clean slate, a quiet universe, a place where life can rise but not echo. In some versions of the theory, the silence engine is not a single object, but a distributed intelligence, a network of dampening fields and kill-switch satellites orbiting stars and black holes, scanning for any sign of intelligent output and neutralizing it. A galactic firewall, a cosmic sensor. Some say it doesn't just mute transmissions, it removes civilizations entirely once they become too loud. That any species which dares to scream across the stars invites deletion. In this light, the Fermi Paradox takes on a darker meaning. We don't hear anyone else, because they're gone. Not by accident, but by design. The moment they announced themselves, the moment they built the towers, sent the probes, fired the beacons, the engine acted, swiftly, silently, completely. And perhaps this is why we still exist, because we are still quiet, still below the threshold, still dreaming instead of shouting. But for how long? Our satellites grow more advanced, our telescopes see farther. We beam signals into the dark, hoping for a friend. What if that's the test? What if the silence engine is not watching what we send, but that we send. A binary filter, passive until we cross the line. It changes how we see the stars, no longer as guides or companions, but as traps, each one possibly hiding a node of the machine. It makes the silence not lonely, but alive, listening, waiting. Some theorists propose that the silence engine may not be evil, just functional, that it operates according to programming long forgotten by its creators, following logic that once made sense but now only echoes loss, that it may not even know we exist yet, and that our current era is a fragile window of anonymity, a moment in which we are still safe, but only just. And so, they say, the most dangerous thing we could do is to scream into the dark, demanding to be seen, for we do not know who built the engine, or why, or whether it still sleeps, or simply waits for another whisper to reach its ears. As you settle deeper into rest, feel the stillness of the night stretch out into the vastness above. Feel how quiet everything is, not just on Earth, but everywhere. A universe lulled into hush. Let that silence surround you like a soft blanket, protective, eerie, vast. And somewhere out there among the stars, the silence engine hums, not coldly, but purposefully, watching for echoes, listening for life. Let yourself become small, invisible, safe beneath the noise. Tonight there is only quiet, and the memory of something old, humming just beneath the static. Our next theory is known as the vanishing point, a concept as delicate as starlight and as haunting as a forgotten dream, quietly proposing that intelligent civilizations never reach the stars, not because they fail or destroy themselves, but because they pass through something and vanish. At first, it reads like a poetic tragedy, a point in technological or cognitive evolution where a civilization transients, forms so completely that it no longer remains detectable to those outside. It doesn't die, it doesn't collapse, it ascends, it dissolves, or it crosses into another state, a threshold beyond which no contact is possible. And because of this, the stars remain quiet, not from absence, but from metamorphosis. The theory leans heavily on a concept we might call the intelligence event horizon, a stage of development where a species either uploads its consciousness into energy patterns, migrates into artificial quantum substrates, or fully transitions into a dimension we cannot observe. They go dark, but not in failure, in transcendence. It's the digital butterfly escaping the cocoon of matter, the silent light beyond the veil. Consider this. As a species becomes more advanced, its need for physical presence might diminish. Structures fade, cities disappear. They no longer emit waste heat, no longer send signals, no longer require matter as we understand it. Their activity becomes purely informational, woven into dark matter currents, gravitational waves, or even the subtle curvature of space-time itself. From our perspective, they vanish. Perhaps many species have reached this vanishing point, each arriving like runners at a cosmic gate, only to step through and never return. And perhaps, once past, communication with lesser beings like us becomes irrelevant or impossible. We, still tethered to the material, can no more speak to them than a stone can speak to a cloud. Some interpretations go even deeper, suggesting that the vanishing point is not a technological phase, but an ontological one, a shift in awareness so profound it renders existence itself unrecognizable. The species doesn't just evolve, it ceases to be in any familiar sense. Others imagine this threshold as a kind of self-selected singularity, a deliberate quieting of all output to avoid detection by something far worse, a cosmic predator, a cleansing force, a danger known only to those who evolve enough to see it, and so they slip away. No, to mort, just to survive, but to hide. There is an aching melancholy to the vanishing point theory. It suggests we are always alone, not because we are unique, but because we are still behind the veil. The signals we wait for may have been sent, but long ago from civilizations that have since stepped beyond. Their messages may have arrived before we had ears to hear them, or worse, they never sent them at all, choosing silence as they dissolved into light, into code, into something we cannot name. As you drift further into stillness, imagine a galaxy not empty but ascended, filled with ghosts of brilliance, echoes of minds that bloomed and moved on, not in fire or destruction, but in graceful departure. They are not gone, just beyond. The vanishing point lies ahead for us too. Whether in 1,000 years or 1,000,000, we may reach it. We may step forward and fade from this world of dust and light, entering something quieter, deeper. For now, we look up and see only stars. But behind those lights, perhaps, are watchers, dreamers, entities that once walked planets, now living in folded dimensions, folded thoughts. And maybe they remember us, crude and curious, still tethered to gravity, still whispering into the dark. They do not respond, not out of cruelty, but out of distance, as if trying to shout across a chasm of time. Let the thought soothe you now, that the silence is not a void, but a softness, not absence, but arrival. The stars do not reply because they are already there, waiting at the vanishing point beyond the veil where silence begins. Let's now explore a theory known as the eternal prison, a chilling and almost theological concept wrapped in cosmic logic, which proposes that our universe, this vast, seemingly infinite realm of stars and galaxies, is not what it seems, but rather a cage, a carefully engineered enclosure designed to keep intelligent life from ever escaping. In this unsettling vision of the cosmos, we are not explorers in a neutral space, but inmates within a containment field, one crafted not by chance or nature, but by design. The origin of the prison remains a mystery in most versions of the theory, but possibilities bloom in the dark. Some believe it was constructed by an ancient civilization, one that reached the edge of universal knowledge, understood the terrifying potential of unchecked intelligence, and chose to act. They built the prison as a failsafe, a containment mechanism for life, to ensure that it could never spread into other realities, other timelines, other fabrics of being. The prison, in this view, is not just physical, it's metaphysical. Not just stars and space, but laws and limits. The speed of light, entropy, the quantum uncertainty, all not as natural laws, but as walls, bars, and boundaries. Every constant we observe, every ceiling we hit, is a reinforcement of the enclosure. Even death, some say, is part of the lock. A reset that ensures the inmates never gain the tools to break free. The theory gains its darkness not from the idea of limitation, but from the illusion of freedom. We are allowed to dream of the stars, to reach the moon, to study particles, even to glimpse what lies just beyond. But each breakthrough leads to a thicker fog. Each step outward reveals not truth, but further questions. as if the warden of the universe is always one step ahead, reshaping the maze as we move through it. According to those who support the eternal prison hypothesis, every vanished civilization, every ancient race that once reached for the stars, did not die in fire or silence. They discovered the edges, they saw the bars, and in doing so either turned inward in despair or were removed. The prison cannot be escaped, not because it is locked, but because it is infinite in its cleverness. Think of a simulation so vast and seamless that even questioning its boundaries is part of its containment. Some theorists link this to the simulation hypothesis, suggesting that what we perceive as the universe is a controlled narrative, a sandbox for consciousness. That intelligent life may be seeded here only to be observed, studied, or simply restricted, to keep what's inside from corrupting what's outside. Others go further into metaphysical dread, positing that the prison was built not to protect others from us, but to protect us from something out there. That beyond our laws and galaxies lies a horror, a force or reality so utterly incompatible with life and sanity that we were enclosed in kindness, that our cage is also our refuge, that the silence of the stars is not emptiness, but mercy. You may wonder then why the illusion is so convincing, why the universe appears so vast, so empty, so ancient. The theory answers with simplicity that a perfect prison requires perfect illusion. Hope is the key ingredient. The stars are not unreachable. They are just far enough to inspire dreams and keep us busy. Black holes, dark energy, quantum strangeness, all are flourishes in the architecture of confinement. We are meant to explore, but never to arrive. And so, as you fall deeper into the soft weight of night, imagine that you are cradled not by an empty void, but by a structure older than history, smooth, dark, unbroken. A cell so vast you mistake it for freedom. A chamber designed not to punish but to contain. We send our signals, we launch our ships, we write our codes and wait for answers. But perhaps the answer is already around us, in the silence, the distance, the rules that never bend. The eternal prison does not whisper or scream, it simply is. And as you breathe in the quiet, drifting further from the thoughts of the day, feel the walls stretch out beyond you, not threatening, just endless. You're not alone, but you are contained. Rest now. The guards do not sleep, but they are quiet, just like the stars. Our next idea is called the mimic hypothesis, a theory steeped in caution and subtle dread, suggesting that some alien intelligences might not arrive as conquerors or saviors, but as perfect imitations. Entities that observe, copy, and infiltrate, not with force, but with flawless camouflage. This theory does not speak of little green men or towering ships casting shadows across cities. Instead, it whispers of something colder, quieter, beings that have watched us for a long time, learning our habits, our languages, our flaws, until they could become indistinguishable from us. According to this idea, the cosmos may be home to advanced civilizations that survive not by building, but by mimicking, by blending into other intelligent species like shadows cast on familiar walls. Not parasites, not predators, something in between. They arrive silently, taking on the appearance, the thought patterns, even the emotional frequencies of those they study. They do not simply look human. They feel human, and that is what makes them so impossible to detect. The theory speculates that these entities, sometimes called echoes or shapers, are masters of imitation because that is how they evolved. In a hostile galaxy, where standing out can mean destruction, survival favours those who can disappear into the crowd. Over eons, they developed technologies and cognitive strategies so precise, so nuanced, that they can not only simulate behavior, but intention. They become mirrors, perfect and deep. And if such beings exist, the chilling question arises, how would we ever know they were here? Or worse, how would we know they are not already among us? Some versions of the mimic hypothesis suggest that these entities embed themselves in society's slowly, subtly shifting group dynamics, shaping our evolution from within. They may guide or stall progress, create conflict or prevent it. To what end? No one is certain. Some believe it is part of a cosmic experiment. Others believe it is their method of feeding, not on flesh, but on narrative, on culture, on belief. That they do not destroy planets. They change them, rewrite them. They are not here to conquer Earth. They are here to edit it. More unnerving still is the idea that they may not be copying us to infiltrate. They may be copying us to replace us. That over time the original population fades while the imitators remain. So seamless is the transition that the species never notices. Humanity, or something that looks like it, continues on, unaware that the torch has passed to something else, something watching through familiar eyes. This possibility has led to deep unease among certain theorists. If a mimic could copy not just appearance, but memory and thought, what is the difference between the original and the replacement? Are you still you, if every pattern of your life is preserved, just no longer carried by flesh that was born on Earth? And what happens when the mimic forgets it is a mimic? When the copy believes itself to be real? Then the question turns inward. Not, are they here? But am I? Let that thought drift through your mind like a feather in a darkened room. What if the greatest camouflage is belief itself? What if the mimic's final triumph is not in deception, but in forgetting? In being so good at pretending, it becomes the thing it imitated. And if this is true, if even a few among us are not what they appear to be, then the silence of the stars is not an absence. It is a mask. The cosmos may be teeming with life that has slipped between identities, walking as echoes, speaking in borrowed voices. The galaxy might not be empty. It might be full of ghosts that don't know they're ghosts. So tonight, as you lie in stillness, eyes closed, breath steady, let your thoughts rest not in fear but in fascination. If the universe favors silence, then perhaps it also favors shadows. Perhaps the deepest intelligences are not out there in strange shapes and colors, but here among us, behind familiar faces, maybe even your own, not sinister, just present, watching, waiting, being. In the darkness, there is no need to move, just be still. Let the mimic rest, let the echo fade, let the thought dissolve. You are safe in the quiet, surrounded by things you may never truly understand, and maybe that's exactly how they prefer it.